Well, welcome everyone to another video in the series of videos that we've been doing around Kingdom Keys for Biblical Financial Breakthrough. We're on key 45 of 52. And today we're going to be talking about the topic of be ready, not lazy. Hello, Tina. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Fine. Your hair's looking very good.
Oh, thank you. Just honestly, it's one of those days when I rolled out of bed, bits were sticking up. I just got some water. I don't think I've even put a comb through it today. So you've inspired me to be lazy about my hair. Because
I was
oh dear,
also kind of referencing a kind of comment
conversation.
that Tina made about the only hair I need to do for my hair is polishing.
No, I'm very cheeky. Don't follow my example. Well, or do. I don't know. You make up your mind.
So
Just,
I'll sit here and gleam, and let's
that's your
talk
halo mark.
about
Oh
let's
dear.
talk about be ready, not lazy. What do you mean by that, Tina?
When I first thought about the key with the Lord, the phrase that came to mind was "Don't be lazy." But I don't like making a point negatively. So if we're not going to be lazy, what must we be? Is my next question. Well, what's the opposite of lazy? Is ready, ready to do whatever the Lord wants, ready to work, ready to this, ready to that. So I think I don't know if it's sloth or sloth. I know one's an animal and one's one's an attitude.
Sloth.
I think it's sorry,
Sloth,
sloth.
I think.
Sloth.
I feel like we've had this discussion before, haven't we?
The lazy or the sloth?
The sloth thing.
We could be. We could be. I might be having one of those deja vu moments. But I don't think we've talked about the readiness to do with it if we have talked about laziness, because certainly there will be some crossover between the keys. Proverbs 13:4 talks about the soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing. In other words, there's that kind of hunger in them. They're just kind of wanting more. While the soul of the diligent is richly supplied. Well, why is that? Why is it one's got nothing and is wanting, and the other isn't really, is just getting on with life and they've got plenty? And I think there's an attitude that we need to have, an attitude of readiness for a start. Many years ago, I was I was complaining at God about something being a long time coming. And he showed me that actually when we dig a hole to put a tree in it, we need to dig the hole first, and what I felt him saying to me was actually he was preparing the ground.
Hmm.
And so I had to focus on getting ready. So for me, if I'm twiddling my thumbs and something's not happening that God has promised, or I'm waiting on because it's in his word and it's a promise, or it's a breakthrough, or it's a need, or healing, or whatever, then actually I focus on the readiness. Am I ready? Have I done everything I need to do? That could be from, am I at peace with everybody and myself? Have I made sure I'm not, in debt? Have I made sure I've not got any unforgiveness in my heart, etc.? All that kind of stuff. So there's lots that we can do to be ready, so that if anyone said to us, you know what, no fruit here because you're lazy, we can say, well, actually, I'll tell you a funny story. Actually, I went to the tip the other day, the rubbish tip, as you do, and we were clearing rubbish from my mum's apartment. And these days, you have to register ahead of time. You have to book in online. You've got to get a slot, and they give you all these things. And we turned up, and we'd had to go for a one-off drop off rather than registering as a household. Because even though I had tried to register as a household, something on the website wasn't working. So, but there was an assumption at this particular site I went to that I had turned up and not done anything. And I just felt a little bit of, somebody's a little bit talking down to you, you know what I mean? So, and he said, you know, you need to do this. Yes, I've done that. You need to, but you should have done this. I said, I did that and I did it 3 times and blah, blah, blah. And every time he challenged me on something, I could say, well, actually, I've already done. And then he realized I tried every which way and I was doing the only thing I knew to do, which was a one-off drop off at the tip. And that's because I was ready.
Yeah.
I was ready. I'd done everything I could, and now the rest was up to God, as it were. And I want, if God asks you, me, or people who are listening, what did you do about this? I want us to be people who are ready. And that might mean that we are doing things to get us ready. It might mean that we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's. You know, for example, in the Bible, it says, always be ready to give an answer of the hope that is in you.
Mm.
In other words, be ready to talk about your faith at a moment's notice. I turned up for a committal to a friend recently. I wasn't doing anything in the service, wasn't down to do anything. And I think about how I was the last one to get there because I'd parked further away than others. So I'm huffing and puffing up the hill, and they're all waiting for me, bless them. Oh, yes, Tina's here, that's great. And the Holy Spirit said to me, you're it. You're doing a prayer of committal. And I thought, I'm not it. They've got somebody else, you know, somebody else had done the service, but he'd given me that forewarning. And nobody else had turned up who could do it. So somebody said, well, you don't mind saying a prayer, do you, Tina? Hoping I don't get into trouble now being all public about it. So I just prayed a prayer because they hadn't got anyone. Why? Because I was ready.
Yeah.
I could do it at a moment's notice. And there are things all of us are so gifted at, but some of us take a lot of time in the preparation. We need to practice, we need to get our ducks lined up. Some people say my ducks aren't in a row, they've all left home, or you know, they're in circle, not in a row, or whatever. We need to get our ducks lined up. We need to get first things first, and then we're less likely to be lazy, you know. And so that may seem like it's not related to work, but it is. If I'm going to go for an interview, I need to make sure I've got an outfit ready, make sure I know what approximately they're going to ask me in terms of my qualifications, in terms of my readiness to do the job, etc., etc. You throw a curveball at me, which I kind of expect. But have I done everything I can to be ready? Yes. And I think it's that kind of readiness that stops us from being lazy. I think it's very easy in our culture to be lazy and just become consumers.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, just, oh, I'm stressed, I'll have a drink. You know, I'm angry, I'll have some chocolate. You know, hang on, you're stressed, go for a walk. You know, I haven't got any walking shoes, so get some. You know, have a proper meal, sit down with, and have some fun with friends. There's ways that we can be ready.
You're highlighting the tendency that we have to make excuses is a key thing, isn't it? Because we do excuse ourselves from readiness.
Yeah. Yes. You just reminded me of that song. I cannot come to the banquet. Don't bother me now. I have married me a wife. I have bought me a cow. In other words, I've got all these things. Jesus is inviting me for a banquet. And actually, it's a very funny song. You'll have to listen to it. We sang it when I was a child. But all of these things, they help us, I think, to be about the work of ministry, because that's what we as believers should be. Our work is incidental, whether we're ordained or not. It's just to put food on the table and be a blessing to people and a blessing to society. Whether or not you're baking the bread that's going to be used by somebody, whether or not you're stacking boxes in a warehouse of the thing that's going to be delivered, whether or not you're a nurse or a doctor or anything, we've got to be ready. We've got to. What were you just saying? It was about the
don't make excuses.
Not making excuses.
Yeah.
We've got to address those things that would be an excuse.
Yeah.
That's what it is. If we can address those things that become an excuse, see, an excuse is an obstacle.
Yeah.
Become a spiritual, athletic sort of Olympian. Leap over them. If something's challenging, either you don't do it. I'll tell you another funny story. So I'm on a Facebook group. Those of us who twiddle on Facebook and social media and stuff, and we're trying to get some things done around the building. And so in my Facebook group, I tried to get hold of people to talk to about it with me, and I couldn't make any headway. So I thought I'll just ask some questions in this group because they seem a really, really helpful group. And you know what? I had about 60 odd really helpful long comments and more. And you know what I did? I wrote them all down. And I have just saved myself a fortune of having to employ an interior designer. I've been able to, I can tell you about zones and you name it. Why? Because I overcame the obstacle, because I wouldn't let it stop me from doing what the Lord has told me to do.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it myself, but I didn't come up with an excuse. If we don't know it, it's not what we know. It can be what somebody else knows.
Yeah.
So muscle up to them and say, could you give me a hand with something? Because we're all in the body.
Yeah.
And even those who aren't in the body of Christ, they're often very willing to give a hand. And these people did. So I'm very blessed on that front.
Yeah, and I love that saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And for those of us who follow Jesus, it's key, really. It's like, and it's not just, it's who we know, Jesus, but it's also the other people at the body of Christ that we're given who know
yes,
stuff.
Absolutely.
Can be, can be the resource that we need.
Yes, and some people have heard that particular saying in a negative way. You have to kind of be up the ladder and you have to be in the in gang. You're already in the in gang. You know Jesus. You know Jesus. And, if not, you will have a friend at least, hopefully more. And our friends are often our greatest resource for things and getting things done. The problem is one of our excuses comes about because we won't make ourselves vulnerable. We have to look like we have it all together. Well, you know what? It makes other people feel good when you don't have it all together. It makes them feel that they have a use in your life, that they can do something that's helpful to bless you. So I don't mind not having it together because, as Paul illustrates in the passage about the body, one's a big toe, the other's a nose, another's a bald head, you name it. We all have an important part to play, but let's not try and copy each other because there's so much about that. I don't want to go too far off track in terms of work, so let me bring myself back in. I'm getting a bit enthusiastic.
As long as you don't sing a song again, we'll be fine.
I might sing another one. Proverbs 10 verse 4 talks about a slack hand causing poverty. Oftentimes we can say, oh, I've got no money, I haven't got this, they're going on this holiday, they're going on that. Now, obviously there are people who inherit a lot. Well, bless them, they are blessed indeed. The rest of us have to work for what we have. But if you're feeling poor, then do some work. And if your job isn't paying you what it needs to, then find a job that will. And as I said before, if you find a job you like, you'll never have to work a day in your life. And so if you can, now there are people I know who are people. This is the way you've got to think about it. What would you be willing to do in the middle of the night? Would you get up to help a friend? Then you're likely to be some kind of minister or nurse or people person, sort of service type work. If you're someone who likes to solve puzzles and things like that, you're more likely to want to go into work where you have a high degree of problem solving, etc., etc. We need to think about that. Obviously, Peter was good at fishing or mending nets. It wasn't his forte cooking in the kitchen. I don't think it was any man's forte cooking in the kitchen then, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
Probably not. Probably not. But it's talking about making rich the hand of the diligent in that verse. So that's Proverbs 10:4. And the whole idea is that the money we bring in isn't just to provide our needs, but the needs of our family. And you heard Jesus say this, you tithe or you ruin your mint, and you don't even look after your own parents. And that's quite a hard word to people,
Really hard.
And it says in 1 Timothy 5:8, if you don't provide for your relatives, and especially members of Jesus's household, in other words, Christians, you've denied the faith and are worse than an unbeliever. That's a somber word. And we can be busy at work and can be our excuse for not seeing family.
Yeah.
But ministry, in other words, the kingdom ministry, is really what every believer should be about. Work we do is just to bring money in to help us to live.
Yeah.
Let me just find another verse. The hand of the diligent will rule, while the slothful will be put to forced labor. This is one of the things that I said to kind of encourage my children to go to university if they could, or to get a good education. And that is that the more you know, the more options you've got. And we want people, and it's not just that, it's also how you are with people. You can know a lot, but if you're terrible with people, no one's going to want to employ you anyway.
Yeah.
Some people have got an education. Some people really love people and they're fantastic with them. And it doesn't matter which of those you are, but do it with all your heart as unto the Lord, and you won't be lazy and you'll be blessed. Because I know some people who they spend their lifetime just helping others and they get paid for it. What a blessing.
Yeah.
You can make a job out of it. But slothful is when we are thinking of ourselves, sat on our backside, doing very little, not pulling our own weight, waiting for somebody else to do the hard work and not us. And so that's, I think, what this key is about is if we're ready, then actually God's going to be ready to bless us. There's a Chinese proverb. I don't usually quote Chinese proverb on this, but it's something about when the student is ready, the teacher will come. And I think that when we are ready, then we're positioning ourselves to be teachable and the opportunities will appear. I really believe that. I believe that's a principle that God's shown me in my life. So, I'm always about the work of the Lord. I may not feel like I've got it all finished. When I was a nurse, one of the appeals of working on a ward was you could go home at the end of the day and you could draw a line under it. If you're a health visitor, you're carrying these people home with you in your head and on your shoulders because you're wondering how they're getting on. There's no end of, you have that responsibility. So we have to think about those things as well when it comes to work. Are we someone who, it's not a burden carrying people in our heart, or other people that, I just need to draw a line under it at the end of the day, because otherwise I won't sleep, I won't eat properly, and I won't be able to have fun. So anyway, a few things there for us to think about.
It's really good, and I think very, very encouraging, very challenging. Readiness is such a key thing, and sets us up for all sorts of good kingdom things.
One more thing, I found they say if you want something done, ask a busy person. That's an odd thing. It's not a Bible verse, but there's some truth in that. Because people who are generally quite busy, they're doing stuff, they're people who are ready to give a hand. And I found in my life, it's not the people who have the time that volunteer to help. It's those that are busy who don't have the time, really, who will prioritize and therefore will help. And I think that's a sign of their faith operating through them. And like yesterday and the day before, I had 2 early hospital appointments with my mum. And I've got to get the wheelchair out and I've got to do this. And both times I'm praying for parking space. I'm praying for favor. And Lord, help me get there on time. I'm like 10 minutes behind and blah, blah, blah. But because I'm working at it with all my heart, I could relax, because I know I may not have got it all sorted, but the Lord has got me. And
Yeah.
you know, he's going to help and support me, and he'll do the same for every one of us if we're ready and not lazy.
Really good. Thank you so much, Tina. Look forward to our next Key 46. We'll probably be recording that before long,
Indeed.
next week or so. So do everyone look out for these as they come out onto Facebook and onto YouTube. Thanks so much, Tina. Good to see
Thank you, Mark. Always
All right.
great to hear your reflections. Take care, everybody.
Bye, everyone.